Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 17 2019 NFL predictions. Well, before I get into the predictions, I would like to tell everybody out there that's watching my video, all around the world, to have a happy holiday season. I know for everybody, it's a very fun time of year, getting together with family, friends, or just having some personal time to relax. So for everybody out there celebrating a holiday, this holiday season, happy holidays to you, your family, your friends. I wish to you a very fun time and good health. And for everybody out there that's not celebrating any holidays, I wish everybody good health and enjoy the time off to either spend time with family, friends, or just to have some personal time to relax and get set for a new decade for 2020. It is hard to believe that we are already on the verge of ending the 2010s. It's downright. I just remember when they started several years ago. It's hard to believe that we're coming to the end of the 2010s. All right, so that's my little part there for the beginning for the holidays. So now to get into my picks from last week. Last week I did a great job. It was one of my better weeks of the entire year. I got double digits in both my against the spread and my straight up picks. So against the spread this current week, I am 10-5, which equals 67%. That's 2 out of 3. And straight up, I had one of my better weeks getting to 12-3, which equals 80% even. So that's 2 out of 3 against the spread and 4 out of 5 straight up. And I am very happy with that sampling. For this week, I have one more game to go, and again, I'll remind everybody, I'm taking the Green Bay Packers here plus 4.5, and the Green Bay Packers straight up to win this game. And one final reminder, Kirk Cousins still has not won a Monday Night Football game. He is 0-8, and I believe he will drop to 0-9. And this victory gives the Green Bay Packers the NFC North title, their first one since, I believe, 2016. Yep, since 2016, so job well done for them, for the Packers, if they pull it off. But now overall for the year, against the spread, I'm now 130, 105-4, which equals 55.2%. It is my best against the spread record ever. To be 25 games above 500. I know for the last couple years since I've been doing against the spread picks, I usually am hovering right around 50%. So to get to 55% is a downright fantastic number for me, and I'm hoping through the rest of the last 27 games that are going to be played through the regular season and the postseason, I hope I can continue to get up to about 58%, and that's usually around what people in Las Vegas do, so that'd be pretty cool if I can get that mark. And straight up now, I am 153, 85-1, which equals 64.2%. It is around that range that I usually get every year, so I will gladly take that. With about 64%, I still have a chance to get in maybe 65, which I think would be great, 65, 66%. It definitely is a career year for me against the spread, getting at 55% and straight up, getting 65, 66%. That's my usual average, so I'm doing just as well as I have over the last several years. So that's a good average to maintain. A few quick things from last week that I thought was impressive. I want to congratulate the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills for clinching the AFC South and the AFC East, respectively. For Houston, it is their 4th division title in 5 years. For New England, it is their record-setting 11 straight, or 11, their record continuing 11 consecutive AFC East title. When I looked at both of those games, I saw the Houston Texans. I thought it was going to be a rout because when Jameis Winston on the second play of the game threw a pick 6 to Bradley Roby, I thought, the game was going to be over. He threw a second pick to Justin Reed, which which got returned for a pick 6, but was called back due to a penalty. And the Texans I thought were going to be on a good, game, but the Texans really, when Will Fuller went out again, and he has a 3-week injury, so at the very least, the Texans, the first time they would get them back is the divisional round, from what I've heard. They just really couldn't move the ball, and it was just basically because Jameis kept turning the ball over that they won the game. They did a good job stopping Tampa's running attack to an extent, but Tampa's really not been known for their running attack all year. I really think Godwin and Evans, Godwin and Evans really could have been significant factors here because basically he was throwing to Watson and Green from Bowling Green. OJ and Brait really couldn't make that many big catches. He threw one ball to Howard that hit Zach Cunningham right in the helmet. And I just see the Texans still as this team to where, and you can bank on this, Wild Card Weekend, ABC, ESPN, 4:25 Eastern, the first Wild Card game that we are going to be able to get to see are probably going to be the Texans hosting the Bills. And the Texans, again, may have more talent like they have in the last few years. But it's just going to be the same old story, I believe, where the Texans get to host the game, ESPN comes down there, and they lose to a inferior talented team that just has a better coach. And they may have a better defense with the Bills, but we'll see about that. But I want to congratulate the Texans for that. Speaking of the Bills, they played the Patriots, and the Patriots, they had their best game against the quality opponent they've had all year. They ran for 150 yards on the Bills' defense. Brady had a 100 quarterback rating, which was the first time he had a 100 quarterback rating in 9 games, which was the longest streak of his career that he had not been able to reach a 100 rating game since, I believe, his rookie year. And I thought, look, the Bills, they played competitively. In their 2 games against the Patriots this year, they lost by a combined 13 points. That's 6.5 points per game, which I think was incredibly impressive for them, even though they now have fallen to 3-32 against Tom Brady all time. I still think that's an impressive mark for the Bills, that going into next year, especially with all the uncertainty with the Patriots, that they can hang their hat on and move forward, saying that they could at least give the Patriots a challenge in the division with Brady and all them moving forward, unlike the Jets and Dolphins are kind of showing right now. They're still not at that stage yet. But congrats to the Pats, though. Job well done. Effective game. Nick Folk hitting a 51-yard field goal was significant and impressive. And it's onward and upward for the Pats, who were trying to get the number 2 seed for the second straight year. I want to congratulate the Baltimore Ravens for winning their 11th straight game and clinching the number 1 seed for the first time in franchise history. Lamar Jackson in another 3-touchdown game. He passed Vinny Testaverde's all-time touchdown record in terms of receiving, and he had another 100-yard rushing game. He has now over, I believe, 11 or almost 1,200 rushing yards. He'd be a top 10 running back in the league right now. I think he actually has more rushing yards than Ezekiel Elliott, who was the highest paid running back. So that's an incredible number. The Ravens, though, did have a lot of injuries they suffered with Mark Ingram. Jimmy Smith went out for a little while. I know he came back in the game. Marcus Peters, Mark Andrews. They have a lot of injuries. And those guys, most of those guys are not playing this Sunday against the Steelers. And I could definitely see some more guys, definitely as the game goes on, depending on how the margin gets, that they're not going to play the entire game either. I thought with the Browns, it was just a fitting end for the Browns, where Nick Chubb, after having 140-plus yards in Week 4 against the Ravens at home, he only had about 45 yards rushing. Odell had the 1 3-yard touchdown fade pass from Baker after all those interference calls, but he really didn't do that much after that. Jarvis Landry really, he made a couple nice chunk plays, but they really couldn't do anything with that either. Because, the first 40% of the game was a turnover battle because the Ravens and Browns just kept exchanging turnovers and turnover on downs, and it was just really awkward. But kudos to the Ravens. Now they're in a great situation in a meaningless game against the Steelers that I still think they should be able to win. But I'll get to that in a second. I want to congratulate Michael Thomas, the wide receiver from the New Orleans Saints, for getting 12 receptions yesterday against the Tennessee Titans and breaking Marvin Harrison's single-season record of 144 receptions. He has 145. He is the best receiver in the National Football League right now. And I know a lot of people, or I know people that I've talked to, they've said, I hate watching the Saints play football because they really only have 2 weapons. And Kamara, he got a nice 40-yard touchdown run. It was his first touchdown, I believe, since Week 3. But the Saints were in a dogfight in this one. And remember, the Titans did not have Derrick Henry. But Tannehill was able to move the ball effectively. He threw touchdowns to Tajay Sharp. He threw touchdowns he had a Jonnu Smith touchdown pass. And the Titans really were putting up a good fight. They were in this game for the most part until the Saints pulled away with a late touchdown after the Titans had used all their timeouts. But I really think for the Saints, look, they're in a great position. I think they have been probably the most consistent team in the NFC in terms of just playing effective football. You can question the defense over the last couple weeks, and giving up 20 to Tennessee is no shame, Because Titans have had one of the hottest offenses since they've been over with Ryan Tannehill. But I really think the Saints, they're going to be a genuine Super Bowl contender, especially with how Breeze is playing and this Saints team is rolling, just with all the talent they have and the movement they're moving forward with. Let's see, one or two more things, and I'll talk about the rest throughout my picks. I want to congratulate the Cincinnati Bengals for clinching the number 1 pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. They did it by losing to the Dolphins 34-31 in an overtime game, which honestly should not have been an overtime game. It took a late touchdown to, I think it was Drew Sample in the first one. Then they got the onside kick, and then Dalton threw a 25-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Eifert. And then Dalton had a 2-yard end-around run where basically everybody didn't expect Dalton to run, and he ran around the right side of the field and got in to get the 2-point conversion. And I almost thought Sanders was going to miss the 37-yard field goal, which would have been hilarious, because that would have given us the second tie of the year. But congratulations to the Bengals, though, getting the number 1 pick. Andy, you know what? Look, the Bengals are in a position where they don't really have a lot of talent coming into the door. They're going to have a lot of decisions to make. But I think Zach Taylor deserves to give Joe Burrow an opportunity, because I feel like he did get the victory over the Jets, which looks pretty impressive now, especially with the Jets being 6-9 now. But I feel like with the Bengals, you have seen this Bengal team, even though they are 1-13, they have played and they have tried to win every game they've been in throughout the year. And I think Taylor has at least earned an opportunity to give, with Burrow, or whatever quarterback they take, a chance to see if he can get this team back up to a 500 level. I don't think he will, but he does deserve a second year in my opinion. And lastly, let me talk about the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Dallas Cowboys 17-9 in the NFC East showdown in Philadelphia. What a disappointing and pathetic game by the Dallas Cowboys. All around, Jason Garrett is going to be fired now after this, debacle. Dak had a horrible game. He only threw for 260 yards. I know there were 6 drops, and those are not his fault. But still, he missed Tavon Austin on a wide open throw that maybe could have, been able to tie the game. Ezekiel Elliott, after saying all last week that they were 5-0 and he's at over 100 scrimmage yards, he only ran the ball 13 times for 43 yards. And it wasn't like the Eagles were blowing out the Cowboys. It was a 1-score game for all but 11 plays of the game. So they could have ran the ball, and I really think that's an indictment on Kellen Moore, the running back coach Gary Brown, and Jason Garrett for not sticking to the run, especially in that situation. Cooper had a lot of big drops, and he wasn't on the field. Or Cooper, Elliott, and Randall Cobb were not on the field on the 4th down play to possibly try to tie the game. I know they called they reviewed it for pass interference. I don't think it was there. I didn't think they needed to do that. But congratulations to the Eagles, who, for the second straight year, look like they're going to be able to sneak in the back way of the playoffs and control their own fate to win the NFC East, and or to get in the playoffs and maybe make a run. And I think with Carson Wentz, he went 31 of 40, 300+ yards, a touchdown to Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert had his best game as a pro, having over 8 receptions for over 90 yards and a touchdown. And it was a funny little fun fact that, remember, Dallas now actually outscored the Dallas Cowboys because of the 4th time the Cowboys could not score a touchdown, which is actually just downright unacceptable with all the talent they have in Dallas that was pretty much healthy. I know they didn't have Williams, or Suafilo went out, or Leighton Vander Esch, or the safeties are banged up, but that really was not enough significant talent that should have caused this game for the Eagles, or for the Cowboys, to lose that game. So, congrats to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now you got a big game against the loser of the Niners Seahawks, more than likely. Or the Vikings, or Packers, depending on what happens. So, alright, so time for my picks and thoughts on each game. So, on the final Sunday of the year, the first game I'm going to go over is when the 6-9 Cleveland Browns go to the 1-14 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cleveland Browns are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Cleveland here, -2.5, and Cleveland straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-11 Miami Dolphins go to the 12-3 New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, amazingly, are 16-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take the New England Patriots here, obviously, to win straight up, but I think with the Miami Dolphins, 16 points, they are, after their 1-6 bye, or after their 1-7 bye, they are 4-4 in their last 8 games, And they have been in other games with the Jets, the 1-point loss, with they beat Philadelphia. They, were competitive in some of the other games as well. Like, this Dolphins team is not a team that I think is going to just, basically let the Patriots roll over them. The Patriots may do that, but that's going to be just off their ability. It's not going to be just because the Dolphins just gave up for the year. So I think 16 points is way too many. And the Patriots, even though they've had 16-point victories, and yeah, they shut out the Dolphins 42-0 week 2. I think the Dolphins are a little bit more motivated. They have really nothing to lose here, and I think they cover the 16 points easily because I think the Dolphins are going to be more competitive than people in New England may think. Then the next game, when the 7-8 Chicago Bears go to the 11-4, 10-5 Minnesota Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here -7, and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-10 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 11-4 Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here -7.5, and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-9 New York Jets go to the 10-5 Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bills are 1-point favorites in this game. With everything going on, with the Bills being locked in the 5 seed, I could definitely see the Bills just resting guys. And I may regret this pick later, or the Bills may want to play just, to get some confidence, or just to get some reps to, keep the momentum over rest theory. So I don't know, but I'm going to lean towards the side of the Bills resting players. The Jets have been a little bit more competitive recently. So I'm going to take the upset here. I'm going to take the New York Jets +1 and the New York Jets straight up. The next game, when the 11-4 or 12-3 Green Bay Packers go to the 3-11-1 Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here -9.5, and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 12-3 New Orleans Saints go to the 5-10 Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints amazingly are 13-point favorites in this game. Just a few weeks ago, with Kyle Allen in the Panthers' last really impressive game. Well, I guess you could say the Redskins too, but they fought that team to a 3-point victory with a Will Lutz kick. Ever since they fired Ron Rivera, they have been blown out by the Falcons. They have looked really bad against the Seahawks. The Seahawks defense just let them get back in, and they just got blown out by the Indianapolis Colts, out of all teams. So I think 13 points is crazy as high, and even division opponent is the Saints are still trying to play for a number 2 seed at the very least. So I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints here -13 and the New Orleans Saints straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-9 Atlanta Falcons go to the 7-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 1-point favorites in this game. I like Atlanta here in an upset, so I'm going to take Atlanta here +1 and Atlanta straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 4-11 New York Giants. The Philadelphia Eagles are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Philadelphia here -4.5 and Philadelphia straight up. Then in the biggest game for the Tennessee Titans season, a win-in scenario, when the 8-7 Tennessee Titans go to the 10-5 Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 5-point underdogs in this game, and especially with how the scheduling worked, if the Chiefs and the Patriots both win, the Texans are basically locked in the 4 seed, no matter what happens. But from what I've heard from Bill O'Brien, he's going to play his starters. I don't know if it's just to try to knock out the Titans and maybe have them have the lose-out scenario for every team to get in this situation. But with the Texans playing their starters and being at home, and with the Titans, just being competitive enough, or just seeing this team over the last couple of years in Houston not really play that great competitively, I'm going to take Houston here in an upset +5 and Houston straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-12 Washington Redskins go to the 7-8 Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, amazingly, are 10.5-point favorites in this game. I think that is way too many points. I'll still take the Cowboys to win the game because Dak Prescott, I believe, has only lost one time in his career against the Washington Redskins. So I'm going to take the Cowboys here straight up to win, but give me the Washington Redskins +10.5 easily. And then the next game, and especially with Dwayne Haskins now being out, I think Case Keenum, especially with how the Cowboys are, they're not going to be motivated. They're going to try. They're maybe going to hope the Giants pull off a miracle, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I think the Redskins are going to be competitive enough in this game. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 13-2 Baltimore Ravens, the Ravens, they're resting a bunch of their starters. They're probably going to go throughout the game. But after watching what the Steelers did against the Jets, they're not going to have their starting quarterback or their likely starting quarterback, Mason Rudolph, with that shoulder injury that he suffered. So it's going to be Duck Hodges once again. And after Devlin Hodges won his first 3 games, looking really well, the last 2 games he started, he's looked like Devlin Hodges, the guy from Sanford that was just picked up off the street. So even with all the Ravens starters starting or resting or not caring, I'm going to take the Ravens here -1 and the Ravens straight up because I feel like the Ravens backups and talent they have should be clearly enough to be a Steeler team that, even though they have a phenomenal defense, and J.J. Watt's the first player for the Steelers ever to have 13-plus sacks in back-to-back years, and he had another forced fumble on Sam Darnold yesterday, I'm going to take the Ravens here -1 and the Ravens straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-8 Indianapolis Colts go to the 5-10 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Indianapolis Colts are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here -3.5 and Indianapolis straight up. Then the next game, for the Oakland Raiders, who are still alive in the postseason, well, all they need to happen, which is not that reasonable or not that crazy, is they need to beat the Broncos. The Ravens need to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Texans need to beat the Tennessee Titans. And the Colts need to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, I'm sorry, Raider fans, and shout out to the football guru. I see 3 of those 4 things happening. But the one thing that you can control, I do not see you being able to accomplish. The Oakland Raiders are 4-point underdogs in this game. I'm going to hedge my bet here because I can definitely see the Raiders making this competitive game. From what I've seen of Drew Lock in Denver over the last few weeks and how Denver's been more consistent and been more competitive this year than the Raiders, I think they pull off the home victory. So give me the Oakland Raiders here +4, but the Denver Broncos straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-9-1 Arizona Cardinals go to the 8-7 Los Angeles Rams. The LA Rams are 7-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Rams here -7 and the LA Rams straight up. And finally, in the 256th and final game of the year, the NFC West is on the line, and the number 1 seed is on the line for the 49ers, and the 3 seed is on the line for the Seattle Seahawks. When the 12-3 San Francisco 49ers go to the 11-4 Seattle Seahawks. The San Francisco 49ers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like San Francisco here, -3, and San Francisco straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Browns over the Bengals. This is one where I'm just going to go with Baker Mayfield here and his numbers against the Bengals all time. He has completed 65.52% of his passes, thrown for 734 yards, 7 TDs, and 2 interceptions. And he's put up, the best numbers of his career against any opponent against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think with the Browns, I just think they have way too much talent. You saw against the Bengals just a couple weeks ago, even though Baker threw a couple picks, it was still an 8-point game. But the Browns, with the talent they had, Chubb had a nice game. Odell Beckham made some big catches. Denzel Ward had a pick 6. I just think the Browns are going to be able to pull out this kind of game. Like, even with all the dysfunction they have, they're out of the playoffs. This is a meaningless football game for both teams because the Bengals are already locked in the number 1 pick and the Browns are out of playoff contention. I just think the Browns, this is where talent triumphs over coaching. And I think the Browns, pull off this victory. Could the Bengals be competitive? Could the Bengals actually win this game? I wouldn't be, maybe surprised because the Browns, after what you saw yesterday, they just look dysfunctional, unprepared. OBJ's yelling at Freddie Kitchens. Baker's making mistakes. And just like the Browns just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Seibert missed his 4th extra point of the year. So definitely the Bengals can be competitive and maybe stun this Browns team who, they have a 6-win team and their only other win was against a 6-win team. But I'm going to take the Browns here just off of talent. They won the game by 8 points last time. I think the Browns are actually getting a nice number, or for bettors, I think it's actually a nice number at 2.5 because I think the Browns are just clearly a better team. And even if the Dolphins, who the Browns blew out, if they only could beat the Bengals by 3 points, that still covers 2.5. So I think of all that, I think it's going to give the Browns a victory. It's a meaningless victory. It may actually hurt them just in terms of draft positioning. But I'm going to take the Browns here just off of talent. And even with the coaching, mismatch, I think Freddie, even if he makes mistakes or even if they have dysfunction, I think they can. The Bengals just don't have enough talent to match that. So that's why I like the Cleveland Browns here, -2.5, and the Cleveland Browns straight up. Then the next game, the New England Patriots over the Miami Dolphins. This one, it's fairly easy. You know, the Miami Dolphins, I can't remember the last time they went into let's see, I'll look it up here. The Patriots rarely lose at home, and they rarely lose at home to the Miami Dolphins. When I look at the Pats here, they're going to be playing their starters because if they win, they get that first round bye. And I think the Patriots starters, they're confident. They shut out this team, like I said earlier, before. Let's see here. So I'll find out here because I know it's been a long time since the Dolphins have actually, I believe, gone into New England and won in New England. Let's see. Let's see. The last time the New England Patriots went into... You have to go back to you have to go back to week 3 of the... you have to go back to September 23rd, 2008, where the Dolphins won 38-13. I think that was the Wildcat game. Yeah, that was the last time the Dolphins win in New England and actually won a football game. And I think with the Dolphins, look, they've been fun. They look like they have confidence. Devontae Parker's had a phenomenal breakout year. He's showing that he's earned that $40 million contract for maybe eventual, openness and confidence. But I feel like with the Patriots that, they know how to play this team. They have more talent. This defense is going to shut down whatever rest of the Dolphins offense has. And I think the Patriots easily win this one. I think the only reason why I took the Dolphins plus 16 is the Dolphins have been very competitive, and the Dolphins have a good core. Remember, they have 3 first-round picks coming up in next year's draft due to the trades with the Texans and the Steelers. But I think the Dolphins, they can make it interesting to where they can be competitive, and I kind of think it was very much like what happened with the Jets-Patriots game in Week 3, where the Pats might have just wound on them and beat them up pretty bad. And then the Dolphins kind of get a backdoor cover at the end due to the Patriots maybe just not wanting to play other starters, or Patriots resting their starters, knowing that they have the game in hand, and the Dolphins just claw enough to get a backdoor cover. Kind of what happened with the Patriots and Jets when Stidham got the backdoor cover when he threw the pick 6 to Jamal Adams. So the game's not going to be really that entertaining because I don't think the Dolphins are going to have that much of a chance. But I'm going to take the Patriots here straight up and the Dolphins against the line because I feel like you're either going to get a backdoor cover or the Dolphins are actually going to be more competitive than the Pats may think with the team they have. So that's why I'm doing the Patriots here straight up, but I'll take the Miami Dolphins plus 16. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Chicago Bears. This is one where I was conflicted because I feel like if the Packers win and they win the division tonight, the Vikings are going to be locked in either the 5 or 6 seed. But I think it's incredibly important for the Vikings to pull this game out because of one reason. They want to get the 5 seed. If the playoff picture arranges and you either are going to have to go to New Orleans or you're going to have to go to Seattle, likely how the playoff seeding is going to go, I would much rather have to go to Philadelphia or the slight chance of Dallas than have to go to New Orleans or Seattle, where the Saints have been basically one of the best teams in the NFC. And Seattle, over the last few years, especially with Kirk Cousins in back-to-back years, have proven that they can't win in that environment. In Philadelphia, where Kirk Cousins has won at least, I think, his last 3 games, he beat the Eagles earlier this year, I think the Vikings will want to play to try to get to the 5 seed at the very least. It may end up, blowing up in their face. Because they still may have to go to whoever, but I would at least want to, if I was the Vikings, control my own fate with the seeding here because I think it is important for the wild cards, especially for the 5, to get the NFC East champ instead of being the 6, where you have to go play either New Orleans or Seattle, which I think for the Vikings is a loss either way. They should be able to beat the Eagles. And with the Bears, look, Trubisky, they only put up a field goal. Mahomes was moving the ball up and down the field at will. And I know that Cousins hasn't beat the Vikings, and the last time they played him in week 4 or 5, it was a pretty embarrassing game, and it was the game that Chase Daniel was actually able to win. But I think with the Vikings, they've been undefeated at home. I think they're going to have one loss at home going into the game, but they've been a much better home team than a road team. And the Bears just right now just seem like they, really can't have that much confidence. They're really not uninspired. And I think the Vikings have enough talent offensively, even if it has to be Mike Boone running the ball. I think they're going to be able to find a way to pull out this victory, regardless if it's for the division or for wild card seeding. I think that is going to be important for the Vikings. If they bench their starters, then I think the Bears should win, but I'll take the Vikings here because I feel like Mike Zimmer and that staff understands the significance this year of having either being the 5 seed or the 4 seed, and I think the Vikings would at least like to control their own fate with the 5 seed, and maybe hope the Niners win and put the Vikings in a position to where the Seahawks are going to be 11-5 and the Vikings are going to be 11-5 too in that way, or 11-5 both ways. Because I feel like the Packers, I think the Vikings are going to play their starters and get this victory out. So that's why like Minnesota here -7 and Minnesota straight up. The next game, the Chiefs over the Chargers. This is one where Kansas City, through the last 5 weeks, starting with the game in Mexico with Phillip Rivers, they've had the best defense in the NFL. And for the first time, I think since 1950, the Chiefs did not allow an offensive touchdown in back-to-back games. That's downright remarkable for the Chiefs. And you could say, look, the competition they played offensively, they played Phillip Rivers, who's had a horrendous year. They played Tom Brady in the weak Patriots offense. They played Drew Lock in his 3rd or 4th start. Even though Drew Lock, that's not really actually that bad because if you look at the Broncos offense since then, they've been actually able to score more points. And you played a Trubisky-led offense, which, come on, it's Trubisky. But I think the Chiefs' defense has been pretty much consistent and respectable, the last 5 weeks, and they're humming at the right time. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. They're getting turnovers. They're getting big, crucial stops. The one thing I wish the Chiefs would do is run the ball more effectively. I know Sean McCoy didn't play, and Damian Williams or Darrell Williams, they really can't run the ball. You may not need to with a guy like Patrick Mahomes and the weapons he has of Watkins and Hardman and Kelsey and Hill. You may not need that, but... And also, I think the Chiefs, they're going to be motivated because they still are going to play their starters. Because if the Patriots somehow lose to the Dolphins, they could get the number 2 seed. So they're going to play their starters throughout the game. And I just think with the Chargers, it's just one of those things where I just have watched the Chargers play enough games this year where, look, could the Chargers, the Chargers are going to be competitive? Absolutely. They've basically been in 14 of their 15 games this year have been one-score games. 13 of their 15 games, or mostly, have been in one-score games, even against the Raiders yesterday. But I think the Chiefs, the offense, with the defense, how it's playing, with Phillip Rivers kind of basically reflecting on retirement, this may be his final game. The Chiefs are probably still mad from last year when they were able to steal that victory against the Chiefs with the Mike Williams touchdown. And I think the Chiefs are just going to be able to, hold the Chargers enough offensively and get this victory to at least, at the very least, in my opinion, lock down the 3 seed, maybe get the 2 seed. So that's why I like Kansas City here -7.5 and Kansas City straight up. The next game, the Jets over the Bills. This is one where, again, I think that the key thing for me is that the Jets are playing on a better roll lately. They're 6-9 after starting out 1-7. They've won 6 of their last 8 games. After starting out 1-5. Since 1-7, they've won 6 of their last 8 games. And I think with the Jets, Sam Darnold's been playing great. He's got, a lot more touchdowns recently. Le'Veon Bell has over 1,200 scrimmage yards this year. I think he's been, incredibly consistent. It's been an incredibly kind of consistent run the Jets have been on, and the Jets have shown you with Jamal Adams that they can be competitive in these kind of environments. And the other thing for me is I just think the Bills, they're in a position to where they're not playing for anything. And I think for the Bills, will they play? They may for a bunch of young guys, and the Bills could definitely win. But I also think the Jets are motivated because they know they blew that game when they had a 10-plus point lead in week 1. And the Bills were able to win 17-16. Actually, I'll bring that up right now. At one point in the game, the Bills, they were down 16-3 at one point, and they were able to score 14 consecutive points to win the game 17-16. So the Jets still remember that, I'm assured. And I think the Jets will be motivated to try to beat them, to kind of, give them a sour taste going into, week 16 on a 3 out of 4 game losing streak for the Bills. But I'm going to take the Jets here just because, again, if the Bills play their starters, Bills probably are going to win the game. I don't think McDermott's going to do that, or I think McDermott, depending on how the game goes, if it's a blowout or if it's competitive or some injuries, if one of the main guys gets hurt in Buffalo, he'll just bench the rest of the guys because they're going to need him next week, probably against Houston. But I'm going to take the Jets here because the Bills aren't playing for anything, and I think the Bills are going to probably go more so rest than play in this kind of game. I could be dead wrong, and people could tell me throughout the week, or what they hear from McDermott, if he's going to play his guys or not. But I'm going to lean towards not. That's going to give the Jets the victory because I feel like the Bills' backups, it's not like the Ravens who have been consistent and have just more talent. The Bills' backups, I don't think, can beat the Jets starters. So that's why I like the New York Jets here +1 and the New York Jets straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Detroit Lions. This is one where it's fairly obvious. The Packers just, I know they barely beat him in Week 5. That was actually, I think, one of Matt Stafford, or that was the Matt Stafford hands to the face, Trey Flowers back-to-back penalties, which basically screwed the Lions out of the result. But this Packers team and this Lions team have been drastically different over the last several weeks. The Lions, they really couldn't move the ball that much offensively. They only scored 17 points against the Broncos defense, and 7 of those were on a punt return touchdown by Jamal Agnew. And so that means only 10 points. David Blau has not been great. They really can't run the ball. Kerryon Johnson, he wasn't starting yesterday, but let's see. David Blau. There we go. David Blau. When you look at the game, he went 13 of 24, or 12 of 24, 117 yards, TD, no interceptions. He really hasn't been, that effective. He hasn't won a game. He has 4 TDs, 5 interceptions. And the Lions, they're just kind of at a point where they really don't have anybody healthy offensively. They traded Quandre Diggs away. A lot of the defensive line is just kind of moving around. And I think the Packers, they'll be able to go in there and effectively, play well enough to cover this 9.5 point spread. Could the Lions be competitive? Sure. The Lions against Drew Lock and the Broncos gave the Broncos a little bit of a run for their money, until on the fourth quarter. But I think the Packers are just clearly the better team and consistent at this point. So that's why I like the Green Bay Packers here -9.5 and the Green Bay Packers straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Carolina Panthers. This is one where I just think when you look at the Carolina Panthers, they've given up more rushing touchdowns this year since their last time in 2008. I think they said they've given up over 20 rushing touchdowns, which is horrendously bad for a defense that has Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson, Kawan Short, Brian Burns, even though I know he left the game. But this Panthers team, the only bright spot they have is Christian McCaffrey, who's probably going to be the first guy to get 1,000 and 1,000, or 1,000 and 1,000. He's been incredibly, consistent and durable, and the best offensive weapon they have. So for the year now, he has 1,361 rushing yards, and receiving, he has 933 receiving yards. So if you add that together, that is 2,294 scrimmage yards with 18 total touchdowns. He is my offensive player of the year. I think he's been, he will get paid handsomely. I think he has earned it. He's been consistent. And I think for the Panthers, they need to lock down that type of weapon if it's going to be for Cam Newton or the future moving forward. They need to lock down McCaffrey long term. But I'm going to take the Saints here minus 13 because you look at, like I said before, you look at the Panthers' last few games. Pretty much a blowout loss to the Colts, 38-6. Seahawks, it was 30-24, but it was 30-10. Mostly through the third quarter. It was basically just the Seahawks defense just being bad and giving a lot of TDs. And in the Falcons game, don't even, with that one, that was a 20-40 loss. So they've lost by 20, 32, and 6 the last 3 games. So that is a minus 58 over the last 3 games. And they just really have not been able to stop anybody. They don't seem motivated. Will Grier or Kyle Allen, that's basically 2 guys not that different from each other. I think Cam Newton actually been able to save his job for the Panthers. But I think for David Tepper, he may be trying to get possibly a Greg Roman, Jalen Hurts combo to come down to Carolina and try to revitalize this offense. But it's the last week of the year. It was very much kind of like where last year Kyle Allen in mop-up duty beat Teddy Bridgewater pretty decisively. I think the Saints remember that, and I think they're going to do basically a reverse role here, where the Saints, who are trying to possibly get the 1 or 2 seed at the very least, I think they will be the probably the 2 seed. They're going to exact their revenge. The Saints have been, pretty much healthy. They could get some players like Von Bell back. They could get some other assets back, hopefully. But I think the Saints are just clearly just on a much consistent high, much better team talent-wise, and they're playing for something where the Panthers are just trying to end the year. So that's like the New Orleans Saints here, minus 13, and New Orleans Saints straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Atlanta Falcons here, I'm going to take them because ever since Week 9, they're tied with the Saints and the Seahawks for the best record in the NFC at 5-2. And the Falcons, it's weird watching this Falcons team play. Ever since they lost to Seattle and they brought back Matt Ryan, the Falcons have looked like the team that a lot of people genuinely thought could have, been in this playoff conversation. They could have been, in the Saints position. They could have been competing with them. It took a while, but, after starting on 1-7, they've won 6 of their last 8. Or starting on 1-7, they've won 5 of their last 7. And they have been pretty much consistent. And they beat the Saints on the road and the Niners on the road in back-to-back weeks. So they've gone on the road before and, been able to play well. Devontae Freeman had his best game of the season when it counted, with getting, I think, 3 total touchdowns. He only had 4 entering the entire year at this point. And I just like what the Falcons, are doing, even without Calvin Ridley. They're making Russell Gage effective. Austin Hooper's back, making the offense roll. The offensive line, I think, is better than Tampa Bay's. And I don't think Matt Ryan will make as many mistakes as Jameis Winston does. Well, and even with Tampa, I don't think they're going to have Godwin. They're not going to have Evans. So their receiving core is not nearly going to be as effective. And I think Atlanta, going into Tampa, a place they know pretty well, I think they're able to pull out this victory just based on the Bucs' injuries mounting up to them offensively, where they can't really match up, and the Falcons just being on a better roll and having more talent to work with at this point than the Bucs. Could the Bucs win the game? Sure. The Bucs have shown you, to be probably the most captivating non-playoff team you can watch, but you just want to watch Jameis throw the football and either see if he can get 6 points or give 6 points. And by the way, now he has 6 pick sixes, or I believe for this year, or 6 over the last couple of years, which leads the league. And I think that's going to be the difference in the game. It's going to be a fun game because I think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. Both these teams are trying to, play for some pride, and it's a division rivalry. But I'm going to take Atlanta here. A little bit healthier, a little bit more consistent. And I think the Falcons, they want to try to give Arthur Blank the impression of a 6-2 record after a 1-7 start for the reason why Dan Quinn should be able to keep his job. I wouldn't keep Dan Quinn's job because after going 6-10 the year before, only going up by a game, that's not enough improvement for me to keep his job. But I could understand why they would keep him, because you can at least see that the Falcons still buy into what Dan Quinn's doing, they buy into his message, and they buy into him leading this team in the future. And with that team, with all the talent they have, they can, with a couple defensive players, with a couple draft picks they have, or with a couple picks they can make, they can really make a good run going into next year, maybe. So that's why I like Atlanta here, +1, and Atlanta straight up. The next game, the Eagles over the Giants. This is a game where I'm going to take the Eagles because I might be falling into the trap of what I did with Dallas, but Philadelphia has been phenomenal over the last few weeks. Carson Wentz is the first NFL player in NFL history to have, I believe they said, 3 consecutive games with 30-plus completions. Philadelphia, look, Miles Sanders, he is having a sensational year in terms of rushing and receiving yards. I think they said he broke the Eagles' single-season scrimmage yard record for a rookie. Let's see, yeah. So he has this year 766 rushing yards and 510 receiving yards with 6 touchdowns. That equals 1,376 yards from scrimmage. He's been, downright phenomenal, and they have now no need for Jordan Howard. I would use Sanders for the next 2 years. You don't have to worry about getting paid. You don't have to worry about money. And I think the Eagles will, gladly take advantage of that. But the Giants, they're not going to be that much. The Giants can be definitely competitive. They played this team just 2 weeks ago, and Eli had a big lead going into the game. It took basically a last-second TD to Ertz to win the game. But I like the Philadelphia Eagles here because I just feel like, again, the Eagles, they know what they've had to go through over the last several weeks. They've been in crunch situations against the Cowboys. Been in crunch situations against the Redskins. They've been in crunch situations against the Giants. They know how to win these close games, and they know what's on the line here. Because the Cowboys are playing the Redskins. Could the Redskins, mess up, or could the Redskins allow the Eagles to back their way in? Sure. But I think the Eagles understand, look, Doug Peterson has, I think, only lost one time, or he's won like 4 or 5 straight games against the Giants. Let's see. If you look at the last few years, when they have played the Giants, he's been able to win out of all those games over his 4-year tenure. He is now 7-1 against the Giants all time, and I think that will definitely play a factor in this game. I think he knows how to beat this team. Pat Shurmur, he's got back-to-back wins for his second time this year, and I think he's now just tied his amount of wins that he did in Cleveland. And Saquon Barkley had a phenomenal game, 190-plus yards. The Eagles' defense, I think, will surely be able to stuff him into the Giants' receiving core, even though he's able to throw 5 TDs. I think the Giants will be able to make some more plays. I don't think Daniel Jones will do enough to give the Giants this victory and be the ultimate spoiler for the Eagles for them to lose the NFC East. So that's like Philadelphia here, minus 4.5, and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Houston Texans over the Tennessee Titans. I'm taking the Houston Texans here plus 5 because the Houston Texans, Bill O'Brien said that he is going to play his starters, which surprised me a lot because I thought with how the Pats and the Chiefs, with you having the opportunity to basically know that, hey, we're going to be locked in the 4 seed, I would have taken the opportunity and rested some starters, but I think the Texans also know, I think the 2 playoff teams they would want to have to deal with are the Oakland Raiders and the Steelers compared to the Tennessee Titans, who have been one of the hotter teams in football over the last, 5 to 6 weeks. And I just think, again, even though the Titans, look, Derrick Henry should be able to come back, the Titans looked great against the Saints for the most part. They were competitive, and it was basically a one-score game for the majority of the game. They had a 14-point lead at 1 point, or double-digit lead at 1 point. I think the Texans, I think they come through. I just think there's going to come to the point where I think Deshaun makes a few more plays than Tannehill, or I think Tannehill makes one more mistake that gives the Texans this victory. Since they're playing their starters, I don't think the Titans' defense, they're going to have some troubles with DeAndre. I think they're going to have Fuller being out there. That may be the difference, and that gave the Titans a victory. But I think with Stills, with Hyde, with how the Texans have been playing football, with them playing their starters trying to win, I think the Texans pull out this game at home. The last time the Titans won in Houston was several years ago. So I think it'll be a fun game. It'll be an interesting game, especially if the Texans realize what the Titans get a big lead and they just rest their guys. But I think the Texans, with their starters playing with the intention of winning, I think they pull off this game in a bit of an upset, I guess, or from what the bettors are thinking. So that's why I like Houston here +5 and Houston straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Washington Redskins. I'm taking Dallas here because I think that, they have enough talent. They're at home. They're going to be motivated. They played a Washington team that's not very good. They just let Daniel Jones throw 5 TDs with no picks at home. The Cowboys, they have to have some pride, right? I know Keenum's playing, and I want to congratulate Adrian Peterson for now being fourth all-time in terms of rushing touchdowns, passing Walter Payton yesterday. But I'm just going to take the Cowboys here just because, there's no way the Cowboys, after, starting at 3-0, are going to end up losing 9 of their last 13 games and let the Redskins, with their backup quarterback, win a game that, doesn't really mean anything. It would be a fitting end for the Cowboys year, but I just got to take the Cowboys here because I just feel like, again, the Cowboys understand the Giants can somehow play just as well as they did against Washington. They have a chance to win that game and give the Cowboys a chance to get back in the playoffs. But the way they set it up, which is very smart, they both have to play each other, so you're going to have to be scoreboard watching throughout the games. But I'm going to take the Cowboys here. They're at home. Dak's only lost to the Redskins one time in his career, which was last year in the Redskins home game. And I think the Cowboys pull off this win once again to get to 500 and to just be a disappointing. They are basically the southern version of the Rams in terms of quarterback, running back, receiver, defense overspent, coaching expectations. Jason Garrett has a lot more pressure on him, unlike Sean McVay. And again, for the Cowboys, it's going to be, they're not going to be a horrible team, but to go from 3-0 to 8-8, to lose 8 of your last 13 games, or like that's just really sad, especially with how much talent and health they were fortunate enough to have this year. So that's why I like the Dallas Cowboys here to win straight up, but I'll take Washington +10.5. The next game, the Ravens over the Steelers. This is one where I think the Ravens just have more talent. With James Conner dealing with an injury, with him not being able to go, I think our secondary should be able to do enough to hold Juju well enough. And we're playing Devlin Hodges, who he played okay against us back in week 5. He played okay, after Rudolph went down. But I just feel like, again, Devlin Hodges, he couldn't beat the Jets. He really couldn't move the ball with the offensive weapons they have. The Steelers don't really have been able to effectively use their tight ends. And I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball that effectively, even with some of our defensive starters resting the game. And I think for the Ravens, they want to beat the Steelers. They would love to knock out the Steelers out of any playoff chance around. And I think that motivation and the depth of talent we have should be enough to pull out this victory. And with 1 point, I think that is a very nice line for people to take. And I'll take that every day and twice on Sunday, just for those reasons. That's like we here. Baltimore here -1 and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is one where I think with the Jags, they fired Tom Coughlin last week with regards to the way he sent fines to certain players and the culture he built in Jacksonville. It was not very culpable for other players to join in Jacksonville, which I can understand that, even though I kind of feel like I didn't think you needed to end it. And I know it was actually after a grievance that the NFLPA was able to win against the Jaguars. But the weird thing that I heard was that that Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell were going to retain their jobs. Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell do not deserve to retain their jobs because this is a team that after, starting out 0-2, they get to 4-4, and then you get Nick Foles back. He gets blown up by the Colts. He gets blown up by the Bucs. This is a team that's just been consistently losing by double-digit games, except for the one weird game where they should have lost against Oakland 2 weeks ago, but somehow John Gruden's just, flubbed up an Oakland game, which is very ironic for the city of Oakland. But I look at the Colts here, and I just feel like, again, they've looked better. They've been more consistent. I feel like they've, the Quentin Nelson injury and his status will be significant. But I feel like the Colts, with what they have offensively with the running game, knowing what they get at 500, that may not help their draft stock. But I think for Jacoby and that team, they need to be motivated to try to get to 500 and show the world that, look, if we can get maybe another quarterback or some other offensive talent or some other guys back from injury like Paris Campbell or Devin Funches or Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle, if you can get those guys back from injuries, we are a good enough team to be competitive in the AFC playoff, in the AFC picture with the amount of cap space we have, with the offensive line we built, with the receiving weapons we have around our quarterback, and the defense, which has been pretty good. Even though that was one of the best defensive games the Colts have had the entire year. And I just think against Jacksonville, it's just one of those things where I think the Jags, they just don't really have any inspiration. Boyer's probably gone. Campbell's probably gone. Fournette maybe could be on the trading block. I just think the Jags, they just want to get through the year and get to the next year with not that much optimism, especially with a lot of talent they have. They had DJ Chark out there. He really couldn't do anything. They don't have a tight end. They're probably going to get rid of Campbell. That defense is going to get separated. And I just think the Jags are just in a really bad spot. And I think the Colts are going to be able to win based off the culture they have and talent they have and the mindset they have compared to Jacksonville. So that's why I get Indianapolis here -3.5 and Indianapolis straight up. The next game, the Broncos over the Raiders. I'm going to take Denver here because I could just see, just like I said just a couple seconds ago with the Raiders blowing the game at home, a road game against the Broncos, a place where the Raiders, the last time I think they won in Oakland was 2015. In the Khalil Mack 5-sack game. And basically ever since then, and then the other one before that was 2011 in Week 1 where Janikowski hit the big field goal to win the game. I think the Broncos are going to be able to pull out this victory. I think, Locke's been playing consistently. They've been able to run the ball effectively with Freeman and Royce, or Freeman and Lindsey. I like what the Broncos have secondary-wise. The Raiders probably aren't going to have Josh Jacobs again. It didn't mean that much against the Chargers, but I feel like the Broncos, they have a better makeup and a better mindset than the Chargers do at this point. Because the Broncos getting to 7 and 9 for the year, they have some hope that if Drew Lock can develop more, if they get more talent around him, if they get their Bradley Chubb back, if they get some other secondary guys, this Broncos team can be a contender for a wild card spot or a good enough team to make teams sweat. And I feel like they'll show that against the Raiders, who are still playing for their playoff lives. But unfortunately, it's not like they're going to have the confidence of or after the 4 o'clock games knowing if they were able to pull it out or not. And I just think, again, Denver, in that environment, the last 2 times they've won only there, I think, 2 times in the last 7 years. I think the Broncos pull out this victory and give the Broncos some hope with a 7-9 year with all those close other losses for the future. So that's why I like Oakland here +4, but I'll take Denver straight up. The next game, the Rams over the Cardinals. Kyler Murray may not play. And even though Brent Hundley looked phenomenal against the Seahawks defense, making some big runs, Kenyon Drake, I think they said the first Cardinals player ever to have back-to-back 130-plus yard rushing games. That was against the Seattle defense, and I know the Rams are out of it. The Rams have nothing else to play for. But I just feel like for the Rams, they're going to play their guys. And without Kyler Murray there, even if Jared Goff, with Jared Goff there, I feel like they should be able to dominate the Rams or dominate the Cardinals at home. In the McVay era, it really hasn't even been close. The Cardinals, I don't think, have won a game in this situation. I don't think they've been able to win a game under Sean McVay. And the margins have been ridiculous in terms of just how he's been able to blow out this Cardinal team time and time again. He played them. Let's see. I'll find it here. He won 33-0 in Week 7 of 2017. And then he won 32-16. So 16-point margin last year. He's actually got 2 shutout victories against the Cardinals. 34-0. And then at Arizona, 31-9. So, these are significant margins that the Rams have been able to beat the Cardinals by. And earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, they won 34-7. So he's been able to blow out the Cardinals basically every single time that he's been able to play them. And with Kyler Murray not there, I think another blowout is more than likely. Even though I do want to congratulate Chandler Jones for being the lead for the sack with 19 sacks. So that's why I like the LA Rams here -7 and the LA Rams straight up. And then finally, in the 256 game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Seattle Seahawks. I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers here because their defense looks like they're getting healthy, and the Seattle offense is not. They lost Wayne Brown, who's not playing. They're going to lose Chris Carson for the year. They're going to lose CJ Prosise for the year. That really doesn't matter. But when he went out of the game, you could just see how, with the Seahawks offensive line, that Russell Wilson could not have that much time to get protection. Losing Josh Gordon is a significant blow, which they had back several weeks ago. And I just think with the Niners, they're motivated because they know that they should have been able to win that game. And the Seahawks this year, again, 7-1 at home, 4-3 on the road, or 7-1 on the road, 4-3 at home. This is a Seahawks home disadvantage, or not a home field advantage that the Seahawks fans are used to. And I know the Niners look better. Since Week 13, the Niners defense has given up 20 points to the Ravens, 48 points to the Saints, 29 to the Falcons, and 31 to the Rams. So this Niners defense, for as phenomenal as it was for the first 3 quarters of the year, during this last quarter of the season, the Niners defense has given up a good amount of points to some good offenses and some great teams. And the Seahawks, showed that they could put up points against the Niners the last time they played them. But I think with the injuries that the Seahawks have, I don't think it's going to be too much of a burden on Russell Wilson in this big spot. I know he doesn't lose back-to-back games often, and he has the best primetime record of anybody in NFL history. But I just think with the Niners, they're motivated. They know what's on the line with the number 1 seed. They're healthier. They're going to have all their weapons around them. They're going to have an offensive line pretty much intact. I know they don't have Richburg there. And I think the pass rush will have a much stronger advantage going against the Seahawks offensive line this time than they did last time, especially if Clowney and Ziggy can't go. And especially with the lack of running game is going to be a significant factor too, to where the Niners are going to get this victory and clinch the number 1 seed, in my opinion. So those are my thoughts, comments, and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, and please check out other great NFL YouTube prognosticators like Keith Bailey, Halfmoon's Picks, Gioknows, Bridgewater's Finest, The Electric Football Show, Nam's Noodles, Halfmoon's Picks. All those guys and gals that do picks, please check them out. They are great people and they are great prognosticators, just like I am. Andrew Warren, check them out and give their videos and videos a like and a comment and a subscription to help them as well. And until next week for my postseason picks, this is Matt the Automatic signing off. So once again, for everybody out there, anybody out there that celebrates holidays, have a good holiday and have a better new year. And I will see all of you once again in the year 2020. Until next time, so long.